What is up, guys, and welcome back to Homelands episode 2. We got some big things planned today. We're gonna go ahead and hop into a creative world because I have a couple ideas that I want to toss around and a couple ideas that I want to show you guys. All right, so right below me, as you guys know, this is the island that we are gonna build on. Now, a couple things I got to figure out real quick. First of all, I got to figure out where I want each district. Now, I talked about in the previous episode how I wanted the island to kind of be split into different districts, which I think could be really cool if done well. But I got to have a little bit of a plan because there's no way that I can figure all of that out and build it in survival without having somewhat of a plan. So we're going to talk real quick just about that. Now, over here, this is where I have the lighthouse build. I think it makes sense that it's over here. It's away from all the other builds. This is supposed to be kind of the area that your eye is drawn to. So I have a bunch of different photos that I like and inspiration from real life that I like. Kind of different color palettes. I haven't fully settled on a color palette necessarily that I like. But I do have a rough idea of what I like. And I think I like the tan, showing these photos. I think I like the tan colors more than I like the white. I think the white is a little too bright for my eyes. It just isn't fully satisfying when I'm building. I have tested it, but I think I like the sandstone, the tannish colors. I think I like those more. Now there's a couple different photos here. In particular, this one that I have here on the screen right now, I really like the walls and like the boats. I do want to have a pretty big harbor on this island as well as a marina, because this is where a lot of sailors are going to be. So there would make sense that there would be places for them to leave their boats, places for them to park, and just areas that they could hang out and work. So there will be a lot of docks and a lot of different walls here on one particular side of the island. I kind of have a plan that I want to try to put into place. But a lot of these places, as you can see, they have orange roofs. They have like a tannish color for the walls. Nice gradients. A lot of them have really nice gradients on the walls. I like this photo in particular of the alleyway. Now it's going to be a little bit difficult because there's not that much difference in height. So some of these angles would be cool, but I think this is really good inspiration for alleyways. I really want some of these buildings to be tight and some of these trails to be really close, compact. A lot of different things that kind of bring in the atmosphere. I think that is one thing that I love doing in Minecraft builds, is really honing in the atmosphere of certain places. And I watched a video recently about line of sights, and this dude in particular, I'll link the video down below, but he was talking about it in Minecraft, but he was relating it to real life things. He was talking about Disney World and how they kind of use line of sights to make things look even more special than they are, if that makes sense. So I really want to focus on this build on using line of sights and using certain aspects of builds and certain trees and certain things to place it in a particular way, so one main objective is accomplished, I guess would be a good way to say it. To build an infrastructure, we kind of have to have a community, and we kind of have to have somewhat of a resident status, so we can build that infrastructure, build the different districts. Now these districts can't be massive. Like it's a big island, but it's not huge, so they can't be extremely big. But I do want to separate the island into individual districts. To do that, though, we have to, like I said, we have to have a community of people. So I've split it up into a few different tiers. The first one is going to be the common population. These are going to be the dock workers, the merchants and traders, sailors, the crewmen, the different people that are on the boats, shipwrights, people that build and repair wooden ships. We'll have a couple different jobs like this. This will take up like 30 to 50% of the population, more than likely. Tier 2 is the supporting trades. So we have people that support all of those 30 to 50% of the people. These will be rope makers, sail makers, blacksmiths, carpenters, fishermen, different people that work and support the trade and also drive in business. So the fishermen, they would be the one bringing food back, but they would also be bringing food for people that are as well on the island, but also to the sailors. So they would be making money for the population and the different things like that. Tier 3 is going to be the government and kind of the administration part of it. This will take up kind of a small portion of the island. This would be the harbor master, tax collectors, custom inspectors, city guards, people like this. Now, the harbor master is going to be kind of the governor of the city, more or less. He's going to be the one that controls kind of everything. He's the one that controls who goes in, who goes out. I have a story that I want to play on him a little bit. Um, you guys will see. I think it'll be really cool if I can play it well. But yeah, so tier 4 is going to be kind of a very, very small portion. It's going to be the lighthouse crew, the lighthouse master who's living there, or lighthouse keeper would be a better word, I guess. But that'll be a very small portion, and we don't really have to worry about that much because they'll all be right here, more likely. Tier 5 is going to be our luxury trades. So we're going to have jewelers, tailors, potters, glass blowers, bakers, different things like that. I do want to define a couple of these community members in a whole. So I want a few people to stand out on the island. Like I told you, the harbor master. Really want him to stand out. I want him to have a name. I have to develop this story a little bit, but I want him to have a name. I want him to have a specific place that he lives. And different, like, I don't know. I might get really deep into it. I really enjoy this type of stuff. So we'll see. But yeah, this is kind of the districts and the communities. We just kind of have to place them where we want them to be. Now, like I said, the lighthouse will be right here. It pretty much takes up this whole island with the terraforming that I've done. So this will be like its own separate build, own separate district. So this would be, there's going to be 5 total districts. This would be 1 district here. The other buildings, I want this little island here to be something special. So I might make, now that I'm thinking about it, I might make this island the harbor master's house, like residential area. Makes sense that he would maybe an office slash residential, because it makes sense that he would be on side with the harbor. It makes sense that the harbor side is on the side with the vast ocean, not inland. He would also be somewhere that he could overlook the entire docks. So if we had a really tall house right here, it would balance out the lighthouse a little bit on this side of the island, but it would also give him the opportunity to overview everything and also have a place to live. That would be really cool. That would be really, really cool. Okay, so back to it. This side I want to be the harbor and the marina. So I'll probably have a wall that goes through here, and the docks will probably, they're going to stretch out a good bit, probably to like right here, more than likely. With boats all up and down. I want to have boats that are kind of scattered throughout the ocean as well, that aren't necessarily docked here, but are docked close enough that they could maybe have a boo. What are those called? They're called dinghies. Yeah, dinghies that would drop from the back and would come over here. This will be tier 1 here. I spelled tier wrong. TIER, tier 1. These are the common folk. Common. I can't type, can't spell. Common folk. Tier 2 here. This will be our supporting trades. Supporting trades. Tier 3. Gov / harbor. Tier 4. Lighthouse. I spelled tier wrong again. Tier 4. Lighthouse. Tier 5. Luxury. This would be the richer people, to be honest. I mean, these people are the ones that are bringing in a lot of money. They're making tons of money from jewelry. They're making tons of money from gems. Maybe they've gotten the gems from off the coastline. They've found some kind of like gem mine over there in the corals or something that they are farming and they're bringing back here. These would be the people that have the money. So let's go ahead and set some of these districts out. Now, the lighthouse here. Lighthouse was green. I'm not going to do too much for it. I don't want to spend too much time outlining it. I'm just going to place a couple here. So this would be Lighthouse District here. Okay, so yeah, this will mark out all of the lighthouse. Like I said, it's going to take up that whole island. Well, let's start with pink. Now, pink would have probably the best view because they are the richer people. So I think a good section for pink would be over here, because I think this has view of the wide open ocean, and also the island. So yeah, I think this would be a good section for pink here. Pink would also take up, well, they would take up a good portion because they would be able to buy a lot, but there wouldn't be as many of them. So I don't think it would actually be that big of an area. So I think this is probably a good fit right here. Government slash harbor. Now, this is going to be a big portion of the island because they need a lot of room to work. I think probably like, honestly, probably like all of this. It's like half the island, but probably all of that would be essential for them to work and probably enough space for the buildings that I have planned. So supporting trades. So the supporting trades would be right next to the government and harbor because a lot of these people would be buying stuff from them, but also they would need access to the docks. So I feel like a good portion of the island would probably go to them as well. Maybe more or less would make sense to me. Now, I do plan on getting rid of most of this sand and replacing it with dirt. I think I am going to keep just a little portion of it to have like a little beach area. But a lot of this needs to be converted to sand because it doesn't make sense for houses to be built on sand. And I'm also going to need a lot of sandstone. So it helps actually taking this out. But the rest of this would kind of be for the common folk, the workers, different things like that. So I do want to dip kind of into it a little bit. It's going to be kind of a rough sketch too. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's not going to be perfect. And I think we kind of wrap it off here. And then there's one specific photo that I really like that is of a Mediterranean like coast area and like a beach. I'll put that up here. I think that probably looks the best for this area. And since this is kind of the largest beach area, we'll leave a good portion of it. But I don't want it to be massive either. So we'll cut a little bit off with the residential. I think like a little bit of that coast would be fine. We'll stick maybe like a, well, this is where the lighthouse goes. I was going to say maybe a retaining wall here. And this will be fine. And like I said, a lot of this is going to be gone too. So yeah, I don't have to worry about any of that. So I do feel like the common folk, I mean, I did say that it would take up like 30 to 50% of the island. So they would need the most space, to be honest, besides the harbor. The harbor is going to take up a lot of space just because the buildings are going to be massive because they have to build boats. But the common folk would take up the next, probably the next amount of space as well. We might even need to get rid of some more of the trade district. No, I think this will be fine. If anything, we might have to make the trade district a little bit bigger just so we can fit some more buildings in there. But I feel like because they would, I mean, the common folk would have all of this. This would be a nice little walkway probably. But this would all be beach. And then they would have all of this over here as well. That's probably about 30 to 50% of the island overall. So I think that makes sense. Okay, so to kind of put a basic outline, this is going to be the luxury trades. This will be the harbor slash government. The harbor master's house will be right here on this little island. And then we have the trades. So this is where like a lot of the shops, a lot of the merchants will be, as well as maybe some restaurants. And then we have all of this area. This will be a beach. And all of this area will be for the common folk and the just people that work at the harbor, different things like that. The not people that aren't so big on the island, you know. And then this will be for the lighthouse. Now the lighthouse will be somewhat as a church as well, more or less. So this will be the religious aspect of the island. I think that is a solid foundation for what we have, and obviously, we have to leave the beach for the turtles. That only makes sense, you know. We'll make them a nice little area. But yeah, and then I was low-key thinking about a way that I could connect these two islands. Because this island isn't big either. But it doesn't make sense. I think the best way would just be put some boats in between here. But I almost wanted to like make it where like the harbor master has figured out a way to cut off like this passage. And like this passage is super important to getting through to the rest of it because the mainland is over here and over here. So I almost wanted to figure out a way I could connect this. Maybe we figure that out at some other point. I don't think it makes sense to do now. And I have some other ideas because this is supposed to be like a really rocky, really dangerous area to get through. So I thought about building some rocks in the ocean now. Not the best at building rocks. I'm not the best at building ships. This is going to really challenge me a lot. But I feel like it only makes sense for there to be rocks out in the ocean, big rocks at that, rocks that take up a lot of space. So I'm not gonna mark those out, but I'm envisioning like a couple like right here. A harbor area would be pretty much clean, but a couple over here as well. So maybe that's how we make this unsafe and like the harbor master controls it. Is he has like the way through the rocks and like you can only get through it if he decides you go through it. That might be the better way to do it instead of trying to connect the islands. But I think that this is a good baseline for us, a good way to get started on the island. It gives me a rough idea of where to build, how to build, and what kind of buildings that I need to design. So I think that this is a good fit. The other thing that I want to kind of figure out how to do is add a little bit of elevation to it. It's got some natural elevation, but it's not the best. I've thought about building this up just a little bit here, because I think we could do something really cool with the cliffside. Maybe add like a cave that goes down into it and like have a little secret dock over here for maybe some of like the criminals on the island, maybe the headmasters involved in some suspicious stuff. I think that could look really cool, but we would need to build up this just a tiny bit. Probably like another like few blocks here. I think that could look really cool. That gives us a little bit of elevation. One of these particular sight lines right here that I was kind of talking about, if I can find it. One of these like sight lines right here. This would look really cool. Because then you would be able to, I mean, imagine you're like standing here. We'll stand on the tree for now, but like you look through and see buildings and then you see like the ocean in the background. That could be really cool, in my opinion. Definitely a sight line that I would want to prioritize, but it would low key be difficult because it stretches across the whole island. Maybe we make that sight line like right here. But yeah, I think this is a good foundation that we have. I think it's a good start. Now, I do want to kind of tease a little bit. Showing you guys too much. This is the lighthouse that we have built, and I think it will look extremely cool when it's finished, when the island's fully built. I think it's a good center point for the island. Shows off a lot. I think the lighthouse is a really good building for what we kind of want. Like I want it to be a mix between a church and like a religious place, as well as a place that would have been the first building that was built and would have been kind of a staple for the whole island and what kind of started the whole thing. You know, that's the story. The story is that these sailors came here to make this place a safe place. So the church would represent that. The church would be a place for people to come and be able to get away from the real world. So I think this build does a really good job at that. All of that being said, I think this is going to wrap it up for this episode. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next episode.